Next on Relevant Radio, your favorite weekly appointment. It's time for the Nazareth Project. Faith, marriage, and family talk for the everyday Catholic. With your host, Lydia Lococo.
Good morning and welcome to the Nazareth Project. Faith, marriage, and family talk for the everyday Catholic. I'm your host, Lydia Lococo. Glad you could tune in. You know, I was thinking that every year, for some reason, somehow, I think summer is going to be slow and relaxed. It's a little myth I participate in. I make every attempt not to overschedule my family. I'm sure you do too. I plan in vacations where everyone's going to be included, and I try to create an environment that I think is going to be this Norman Rockwell experience of fun and sharing. And sometimes I get it right. A lot of times I don't. But once in a while, I actually do get some time for reflection, and I assume you do too. And so every so often this summer, I was thinking when I was putting a few notes down that you will find yourself taking a walk or staring out at the ocean when you're visiting the seashore, hiking or bike riding, and you are going to have time to reflect and let your mind wander and to really do the kind of deep prayer and discernment that only happens for a lot of us, frankly, when we've settled into kind of a different posture that, you know, vacation makes room for. It's this time of reflection that gives way to those kind of questions that are fodder for all those spirituality books, frankly, that we find on the bookstore shelves of those Christian stores that we frequent, right? Why am I here? What is God's plan for me? When we think those thoughts, I don't really think we stay very long on those deep, deep questions that theologians think we stay on. But because we all know, you know, those major stumbling blocks on the Christian journey, like the question of suffering, you know, the drill, it's if a good and gracious God counts the numbers of hairs on my head, how can he let, you know, the Holocaust occur or children get cancer? Those are those big questions, but I think a lot of us have come to peace with those unanswered questions that seem a mystery, those larger questions of suffering. But what if we found a way to understand that within this larger economy of salvation, we know it's not a lasting city and that there's evil in the world. It's more the questions of that we don't have resolved, that aren't the larger issues, that I think kind of pop up, bubble up when you're lying in a hammock in the summer looking up at the sky. So the question of suffering is not what the show is about, is what that long intro is for. I kind of wanted to raise the issue of desire. When you're laying in the hammock, and you're looking up at the summer sky, I do think that the desires of our heart come to the surface. We kind of slow down in the summer. I've always wanted to change jobs, Lord, and do X. Or, dear Lord, I'm so lonely. And it's when I'm sitting here alone that really comes to the forefront of my mind. Could you please send someone into my life? Or, Lord, I have such a wonderful husband. Could you please bless us with children? We read in Psalm 37, trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. God plants desires in our hearts. That is how he calls us to himself. And if you look at your life with supernatural eyes, you will see how he continually called you in the specifics of your own journey up till this point. But we know that the fulfillment of all those desires often requires that we wait. And that's what's frustrating, right? Why is that? It's infuriating. Why can't prayer be like magic? Why can't novenas and rosaries be charms and poof, every desire I have is fulfilled, right? We know that that isn't the way that the Lord works. He seeks our surrender to his yearning for us. Perhaps we even ask ourselves, how can carrying a cross relate to waiting on the fulfillment of this particular dream? Certainly, waiting for these desires is truly a cross for many people. But this waiting also calls us to hope. I was thinking about Lazarus. Lazarus, when he died, his sisters kind of stopped expecting a miracle, right? He was dead. So we could ask ourselves, what purpose did Jesus have in delaying coming to them and bringing Lazarus back to life or helping him when he was sick. Go back and reread John 22nd. That's an interesting thing to ponder. And then I know that the fulfillment of our desires is often much different than we anticipate. The Lord often answers our prayers in ways we don't even recognize. And until we're sitting out on the deck in the summer evening and we say, hey, wait a minute. He did answer that prayer. It's kind of like we're blind. I think that these summer reflections provide a good backdrop to the guest that we're going to visit with today. I want to share with you the time that I spent with her in the studio. Her name's Angela Gole. Angela really did have desires placed on her heart by God for children. And she's going to share with us a 7-year journey of desire that encased her dealing with the issue of infertility and miscarriage. We're going to take a quick break now, and when we come back, I'll welcome you into our studio visit with Angela Gole. You're listening to The Nazareth Project on Relevant Radio. We'll be right back.
If you can picture it, American Landscape can make it happen. You can rest assured that the haven you have in mind can happen with American Landscape. Transform an ordinary yard into an outdoor living space everyone will love. Since 1973, American Landscape has been serving residential and commercial property owners with certified professionals. Go to relevantradio.com, keyword landscape. relevantradio.com, keyword landscape.
If you've just started listening to AM 1640, welcome to the new station, covering all the counties of the Archdiocese. If you're a business owner, your message could be airing right here, right now. With 2 stations delivering the Nazareth Project and other great shows all weekend, your message will be heard by thousands of potential customers. Build awareness, brand your business, and drive traffic. Contact is easy. Send an email to businessbuilding@relevantradio.com.
We're back with the Nazareth Project on Relevant Radio. Here's your host, Lydia Lococo.
Welcome back to the Nazareth Project. You're here on Relevant Radio. We have in our studio today a very special person and a good friend of the Nazareth Project, Angela Gole. I gave Angela a pretty long intro before we turned the mics on and talked to her about how much trepidation I feel in even broaching this subject because I'm so sensitive to the fact that this is a heart topic and one that carries much pain for many people probably listening. So I want you listeners to know that we're going to broach the topic of infertility today and that we hold all of you in prayer and that we stand as sisters with you. I've been blessed with children, as my listeners know, but I have many, many friends who have not, and I've walked the journey with them. So I'm especially sensitive, and I appreciate Angela being so patient with me on broaching the topic of infertility. But at the same time, I think we have to talk about hard topics. And I told her, we can't just talk sunshine and roses every day. So I'm going to start by reminding you that when we finish our shows each day, you can go to thenazarethproject.com, and there will be website links and book references, anything that's mentioned in this discussion today, because we want you to know there's resources out there. Angela Gole is from Germantown. She teaches college courses in Spanish, but I think she wants to be known now for her primary role as a wife and mother. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you.
I met Angela by email because I'm very interested in the topic of infertility, and Angela speaks extensively on this topic. She has a pretty long bio that she talks about in 1 hour probably or more presentations, but I told her she has 5 minutes. So, Angela, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with your own personal witness. This is a specific woman with a problem specific to your marriage and how you dealt with this. We will start with Luke 1:38, though. Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, be it done unto me according to your word. And that's where we all start, is being open to God's will, which you were. So would you share your story with us?
Absolutely. We were married, my husband Douglas and I, in 2000, and Shortly thereafter, we conceived a child, in which shortly thereafter we lost in miscarriage. And we were never able to find out why. And the medical staff at the time was like, this just happens, try again. And after that, basically, it was 7 years of infertility. So a long time in and out of doctor's offices and always the same thing. We really don't know you're healthy. A bunch of cookie cutter blood tests. We have no idea both you and your husband are healthy. And it's just not something we can give a reason for, we can diagnose. So, if you want to have children, have in vitro fertilization, or you may not be able to conceive at all. And so this is basically the answer. You're in the 20% unexplained category. And we really sort of, after 7 years, were ready to give up. And it was challenging on our faith in every way. But just persisting ended up kind of falling into Pope Paul VI Institute, which was a savior in many different ways medically, because we wanted to find answers. And that was the most important thing, was to find what's wrong. And then after that, hopefully, if we could, to conceive and have children. And so when we were there, they did extensive medical testing. Instead of, 2 blood tests, it was every other day, hormone workup, blood tests, and looking at other factors, kind of putting the whole picture together, the whole puzzle. It's really a puzzle. It's rarely just one little thing.
Can I interrupt you? Paul VI is in what city?
That's in Omaha, Nebraska.
Nebraska. Okay, Go ahead.
And so in communication with them, they were able to tell me, and just to back up a little bit, within that 7-year period, I had asked several, mind you, we've been to dozens of doctors, and I had asked, could this be endometriosis? I'd heard that was a cause of infertility. I really didn't understand what it was or know much about it. And I was always told the same thing. Well, we don't know for sure. Probably not. Your symptoms aren't consistent with that. But anyway, we generally, it's not diagnosed because you can just be prescribed the pill to take care of pain for that. So there really wasn't an end game. And so I was really never given an answer and kind of just told surgery isn't necessary for you. Well, at Pope Paul VI, I said, well, we think that you're going to need surgery and that you'll need, that you do have endometriosis. The only way we know for sure is by doing it. That's what we did. I did have endometriosis, enough to probably cause problems as one major factor in the infertility. And basically, in a nutshell, after 7 years of infertility, I had surgery. 3 weeks later, we were pregnant, naturally. And so...
How many children do you have?
I now have 3.
Okay.
Yes, and they were instrumental in helping us. And it's not just the getting pregnant. It's, when we got pregnant, it was like, okay, now sigh of relief, but then all the worry starts of, the pregnancy and will it be healthy? And they were with me throughout the whole thing. I needed, progesterone injections. I needed to be that type of care all the way through. And they worked with my local OB to help me out.
And from they're from a Catholic perspective, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they believe and see with the eyes of faith, yet they are scientific physicians.
Yes, how life is sacred, but it is, board certified obstetrics and gynecology. They're just like everybody else in that way, but they have a different philosophy that is beholding how life is sacred and completely 100% consistent with the Catholic Church's teaching.
So let's say you went there and said, okay, no holds barred, I'm getting pregnant no matter what, surrogacy, in vitro, blah, blah, blah. They would have said what to you?
They would have said, well, first of all, let's find out what's wrong. Okay, number one, the philosophy that they have that I think everybody else seems to not have in my experience is let's find what the trouble is. And then they would say that is not an acceptable way of that we would pursue. We have other ways that we think are better. Let us explain. They don't do that. What their philosophy is, let's find out the underlying problems. Let's treat those, diagnose them, treat them, and then let's let you and nature and God take over and get pregnant naturally if you can.
I told you when we started this, I talked to so many. In fact, I will share with you, somebody came to me 2 days ago and said, my sister wants to sell her eggs. She needs money. Is that against the teaching of the Catholic Church?
It is.
People don't know. And you can point fingers and say how bad people are, but they simply have not been catechized and they have not been formed. And many times people will say to me, why didn't someone tell me? And if I would have known. So I want to point people in the middle of your talk, remind them, you can go to catholicinfertility.org. And it's a great website because they have the guidelines for Catholics on the evaluation and treatment of infertility. And it points to your specific and all of our experience is that we don't want to separate the marital act from its end, right? From what we're created for and what it's created for. So people say, well, how do I know if technology is against church teaching? And there are simply two simple things that I just want to inject right here. Any procedure which assists marital intercourse in reaching its procreative potential is moral. So if it assists the marital act, that's great. So let's say your tubes were blocked. Let's say you had endometriosis. We certainly can, in good conscience, clear that up, right? See these underlying problems and allow, like you said, the Lord to work. Any procedure which substitute or suppresses the need for marital intercourse is immoral. So separating the act, petri dishes, surrogacy, masturbation to obtain sperm to mix with an egg in a dish, for example, even then to implant would be immoral because it separates and destroys the marital act. So I just wanted to interject that and say, affirm what a great experience you had and what a gift these people give people to direct them, right? To live their faith, but to literally treat them as people, as whole people. It reminds me of the Mayo Clinic, right? It's that whole person experience that we sometimes don't get in the everyday experience of our medical treatment, right? They look at you as a person.
And also, I'd like to add that, yes, it's 100% in line with Catholic teaching. You do not have to obviously be Catholic to be treated there.
Right.
They'll treat anybody and everybody. And, they're not necessarily, at least in my experience and from what I understand, their medical practice is in line with Catholic teaching, but their doctors are not going to be talking to you about Catholicism.
Right. They're doctors.
They're doctors, and they're going to help you, but in a way that respects the woman's fertility, that respects life, and that what we were looking for at the time amongst all of those other things was an answer. And that is so important, is to find out what the underlying problem is and not, number one, just put a Band-Aid on it, or number two, for me personally, I after having the surgery, I have no more pain. I used to have pain every single month, and this has helped me immensely. I didn't even know that would be a byproduct of that. So it's just there's so many good things that can come out of it.
I want to, before we wrap up our interview, and I could talk to you all day on this, we've got to have you back. I want to tell our listeners that Angela is, and I want to encourage this. Angela is available for presentations in parishes, and if you want to get a hold of Angela, go on the NazarethProject.com website, and we will have a way to get in touch with her. But if you forget where to go, just call the Nazareth Project, and we have her contact information. She needs to be speaking, if you ask me, in every parish. There are infertility problems. People suffer in silence. The church wants to help people, but I would say there's certain ministries that you have to, it really helps to be peer-to-peer, like-to-like. And some of those ministries might be ministries separated and divorced Catholics. Really, if you walk that walk, then you'll kind of understand it. Miscarriage, infertility, that's where woman to woman, that kind of ministry, just to hear a witness talk and to say, I've been there, and let me tell you how it worked for me, and this might work for you, is such a benefit. So if you're on a Christian Women Board and you need a speaker, if you're a parish council member, we want to get Angela out to these parishes. Angela, thank you so much for coming by today. See, that wasn't so bad, was it?
No, thank you. I've been tremendously blessed with 3 wonderful children, and I just want to give back and help in any way that I can.
Well, thank you. I think you're going to get a lot of phone calls.
Thank you.
Details of Ivy discussion are going to be posted on the website, NazarethProject.com. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it's going to be time for Lydia Lococo's very favorite mailbag. I love answering your questions because there are always things that are in the back of my mind. I'm Lydia Lococo. You're listening to the Nazareth Project on Relevant Radio. We will be right back.
If you can picture it, American Landscape can make it happen. You can rest assured that the haven you have in mind can happen with American Landscape. Transform an ordinary yard into an outdoor living space everyone will love. Since 1973, American Landscape has been serving residential and commercial property owners with certified professionals. Go to relevantradio.com, keyword landscape. relevantradio.com, keyword landscape.
More and more people are talking about Lydia Lococo's Nazareth Project on Relevant Radio. If you're a business owner, your message could be airing right here, right now. With 2 stations now serving the Archdiocese and covering all of southeast Wisconsin, your message will be heard by thousands of potential customers. Contact is quick. Send an email to businessbuilding@relevantradio.com. Build awareness, brand your business, and drive traffic. Businessbuilding@relevantradio.com.
We are back with the Nazareth Project on Relevant Radio and your host, Lydia Lococo.
Welcome back to the Nazareth Project, faith, marriage, and family talk for the everyday Catholic. It's time for the mailbag. Remember, everybody out there, you can send me your questions by calling our dedicated voicemail. Dedicated voicemail means this goes to no one else. It just goes to a tape recording box. The number is 414-758-2241. Just leave me your first name and your parish along with your question, or you can say anonymous. And you can also email me at nazarethproject@archmill.org. So let's dive into our mailbag. We have 2 questions. Number 1, this is our more serious question. Karen from St. Williams in Waukesha. And this is what she said. As a confirmation catechist, it's clear that the short 9 months we have to prepare young Catholics to be fully functioning in the church just isn't enough. Too often, they only get this catechesis, she puts this in capital letters, and they are vulnerable because they lack useful faith knowledge. So they leave and they go to churches where they're entertained. How do we address this problem? Well, I mean, this is a problem that I don't think it's just this generation. And I personally feel from my own experience that what one generation deems entertainment, another generation, the younger generation, might deem really meaningful liturgy, right? So one person's guitar mass is a very important part of another person's faith life. So it's hard to use adjective on people's faith experience. And I say that as a young girl, I was very, very involved in my own youth group. If you want to picture me, I don't want to say it out loud, but I was singing along with the guitar group, and I was not the lead singer, may I add. And then I grew up and ended up majoring in theology and becoming much more serious and deeper in my faith. But I often look back at those times and say, would I have been carried along in my faith had I not had those kind of, frankly, more cheesy youth group moments? That little youth group was very important to me. So the question is, how do we keep young Catholics engaged, right? I think all around our archdiocese, we have real examples of, like I'm thinking of Cor Jesu, which is on Wednesday nights over at St. Robert's, where young adults gather and, really or Arise, for example, which is totally lay-led by our young adults. And, Arise gets 600 and 700 young adults. Is the music something that I would maybe be attracted to? No, but they have to have scores of priests to handle the 2.5 hours of straight confessions. Those kids are lining up. Those young people are on fire. There's music. There's adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. That is an experience that I might not be drawn to, but that keeps their faith alive, and it's really owned by them, too. It's led by these young priests. So I think there are opportunities around the Archdiocese to plug younger Catholics into liturgical experiences, prayer experiences, and frankly, fun experiences that would speak to them. So our office handles and pushes out all the young adult activities that go on in the Archdiocese. So go to the Nazareth Project on the John Paul #2 center.org and see what we have available. I want to take this seriously, and I know exactly what you're saying, but learning is more than sitting in a chair and having someone, catechize you. They've got to experience it. I think that's what speaks to them. Very participatory generation, and they want to be part of it all. Number 2 question, which is I have no answer for, is we're gearing up for the start of a school year. This is anonymous, and I'm overwhelmed with 3 kids getting ready to board that big yellow bus. How did you manage back to school with 8 children? I'm reading this question in the middle of July, and I know many of you right now are shuddering and turning off the radio because you're like, Lydia, I don't want to think school. It's summer. I'm compartmentalizing. I only say this because it really helps. I know it's not fun to be the grown-up if you let everybody have a great summer, but secretly you already have back to school in mind. Because if you wait to handle back to school when it's back to school time, it's not going to be pretty, right? If you secretly say at the end of July, because they always publish all those back to school supply lists, etc., I'm going to do a little bit every week. I'm going to make a little time plan, and I'm going to do supplies this week and uniforms next week or clothes next week. And everybody else thinks it's the middle of summer, but you will arrive at the end of August fully prepared, calm, kind of on top of things. I think we know many mothers who take really seriously their job of staying home with kids, and they are professionals in a sense, and they are the grown-ups in the room. And I think it makes it easier on everybody for that really hard re-entry into back-to-school time. I want to end with a little promo of a lot of activities that are happening around the Archdiocese. We're adding this to our mailbag because we get a lot of people asking us to promote things. So I want to remind everybody to go to archmail.org. We have festivals all over this Archdiocese. They're all listed on archmail.org. Participate in your parish or in somebody else's parish and go by and see what's going on with them. July 20th through 26th is Natural Family Planning Awareness Week. If you need any resources, you can come to us. Theology on Tap goes all the way through the end of July. 31st, Mondays through Thursdays, we have 14 different sites. Again, johnpaul2center.org or the archmail.org address. You can find out what's happening for Theology on Tap. Have your young adults drop by. 2 retreats last that I want to promo. Young Adult Retreat 2014, Finding Faith in a Busy Lifestyle, hosted at the St. Vincent Pallotti Retreat Center in Elkhorn, is August 8th through 9th. It's hosted by Catholic Financial Life and Lake Country Young Adult Ministries. You can find their link on our show, thenazarethproject.com. And lastly, if you know anybody who's discerning the priesthood, Father Luke is taking a great group of guys up to a Wisconsin River canoe trip August 3rd through 6th. Contact him through thinkpriest.org, and if you know someone or if you yourself might be discerning. Thanks so much for listening to our mailbag, and now it's time for What Really Matters. It seems to me that we all agree that God isn't a magician living in the sky waiting for us to concoct the right combination of novenas so that he can grant our wishes. The face of God is his Son, Jesus Christ, and he sent his Spirit to be with us until the very end of time. He loves us in a personal way, and that means in the very specifics of my life, he walks with me. What really matters is how faithful I am to this God that I love. Whether I have misunderstood God's guidance and what I think are my desires, or whether the Lord is asking me to wait. My response should be the same. I'm called to surrender everything to the Lord. I have to commit to love and obey him, even if he never fulfills my longings. Eventually, we are promised that he will bring everything to fruition if we remain obedient to him. His is a perfect will for us. That we know for sure, and that is all that really matters. Thanks for joining us today on The Nazareth Project, Faith, Marriage, and Family Talk for the Everyday Catholic. You can stay in touch with us on Facebook, Twitter, and our website, thenazarethproject.com. Remember to call and leave me a message for our mailbag. I'm down to the bottom. I need some more questions at 414-758-2241. No one is on the other end of the line. And you can either leave your name and parish, or you can just say this is anonymous, 758-2241. Today's show and our past shows are available online at thenazarethproject.com. Coming next week, our guest is our good friend, Bob Dolan. I think you'll really want to tune in for that show. Thank you today for chatting with us this morning. I'm Lydia Lococo. We will see you next Friday. God bless your day.
You've been listening to the Nazareth Project on Relevant Radio. Tune in next Friday morning at 9 for more faith, marriage, and family talk with Lydia. And for more information about today's guests and topics, visit thenazarethproject.com.